And welcome to lesson 5.5, operations with fractions. During this lesson, we're going to teach you how to use common denominators to subtract fractions. We're going to continue with our cross multiplication process so that you can use that to quickly and efficiently add and subtract fractions. So let's just go back a second and talk about the adding. We want to add 3/5 plus 1/3 and not use the blocks, just use the symbols. That's what Symbolic's all about, just the numbers. Then all we do is take the 3/5 plus 1/3 and need to find the lowest common multiple, which we know is multiplying the 5 times the 3. That's 15. So on the bottom here, I'm going to get 15s. So the 9, the number that is here, is going to be from 3 times 3. That's how I get that number. This number right here, this 5, is from the 1 times 5. There's our cross multiplication there. Now that I've got both of them in 15ths, I now can add them. 9 plus 5, that gives me 14 15ths, and I'm done. Okay? As I'm marking this, I'm going to be marking this number, this set, and this set. So this question would have been worth 4 marks. Sometimes it's worth 5 if you have to reduce it. Now, the difference between adding fractions and subtracting fractions is actually not very much. Instead of adding and having a plus sign here, I would be changing this to be 3/5 take away 1/3. Now nothing changes except for this, and that. It's the exact same process. That's why cross multiplication is so good to work with. Once you learn how to add, changing to the subtraction is actually pretty easy. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to do the same thing. Find the bottom by 15, by multiplying 5 times 3. That gives me my denominator right here, 15. This first number up here is 3 times 3. That's a 9. This number right here is from 1 times 5. There's my 5. And now I'm subtracting. I'm not adding, so it's going to be 9 take away 5 this time. And 9 take away 5 gives me an answer of 14. So again, it's very straightforward. Just subtract instead of adding. I'm going to be doing several examples and having you work through them. And then at the end of the lesson, I'll probably throw in a couple of extra ones that I've made up just to give you some extra practice because adding and subtracting is so similar. Bob searched his fridge and found a pizza. He had 7/8 remaining. If he ate half a pizza, I'm going to change this just slightly. If he ate half a pizza, okay, then how much did he leave in the fridge? So we have 7/8, and he's going to eat half a pizza. So 7/8 take away half. So we have to find our lowest common denominator. We're going to stick with multiplication. So cross multiplying. So 8 times 2 is 16. So I'm going to have 7. Sorry, back up here a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to be doing a denominator of 16. So there's my denominators. 7 times 2 is 14. 1 times 8 is 8. Now it's very important that when you're finding your numerators that you start with the 7 and you multiply it by the 2 to get the 14 in your first slot here, in your first fraction. There is a difference between 14 here and the 8 being taken away, and the other way around where you have 8 take away 14. Now in grade 9 we're going to be doing positive and negative fractions. So you have to know that order is important. 8 take away 14 is actually negative 6, whereas 14 take away 8 is positive 6. So keep your order correct. Screwing your order up will cause the whole question to be incorrect, and I have no choice but to mark it wrong. So let's go back to where we were. Get 14 over 16, taking away 8 over 16. So that's 14. Take away 8. We now have the same denominator, so we just simply subtract our numerators. The denominator doesn't change. 14 take away 8 is 6 16ths, and now we can reduce this. Using your calculator, you would press 6, ABC, 16, and then press equals, and your calculator will shoot out 3/8. It'll tell you. If you don't know how to do that or you don't have your ABC calculator available, 6 divided by 2 and 16 divided by 2, you can do it manually. That will also get you 3/8. So Bob left 3/8 of a pizza in his fridge. Let's go on to our next example. Bob and Frank are now building a treehouse. Bob completes 3/4 of the construction and Frank completed 1/5 of the work. How much more work did Bob do? So it's going to be 3/4 take away 1/5. Our lowest common denominator or multiple is going to be 4 times 5. We always get it by multiplying. It's the easiest way. There are shorter versions, and later on when we do cross multiplication with mixed fractions, you'll see that the numbers get very large. However, it will always work by doing this. So I've got a denominator of 20. So cross multiply. 3 by 5, that's 15. Next, 1 by 4, that's 4. So 15 take away 4 over 20. You keep the same denominator. And of course, 15 take away 4 is 11. So there's your answer, 11 over 20. Very straightforward. The process is always the same. Next example. A recipe calls for 2 types of liquids to be used. 2/3 cup of milk is needed and 1/2 cup of melted butter. Which is greater and by how much? To find out which is greater, you can convert the two fractions to have the same denominator. So that would be 2 to become a 3 to a 6. You multiply by 2, so this becomes 4/6. And this one you multiply by 3, so this becomes 3/6. Now since 4/6 is more than 3/6, we know that 2/3 is greater. You can also do this by converting both of them into decimals. I'll write it down, but I'm going to have to reduce it. To get 2/3 into a decimal, it's 2 divided by 3. That is 0.666. 1/2 would be 1 divided by 2, and that's equal to 0.5. Since this is 6/10, this is only 5/10, this one is larger, so 2/3 is the larger fraction. Now we know to answer the first question. Which one is greater? Well, the 2/3 or the milk is greater. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and erase that for a second. Let's go to the actual question on how much more milk is needed. Since I now know that 2/3 is greater, that is going to be 2/3 take away 1/2. I'm going to give you a second to complete this question. Okay, you should have found the lowest common denominator by multiplying 3 times 2, and that's a 6. This number on the top here is the result of 2 times 2, which is 4. This number here is from 1 times 3, which is 3. So 4 take away 3 over 6 is 1/6, so 1/6 more milk is required in the sentence. How am I marking this? Simple. A question, you'd always write, in a question like this, you always have to write down the question. You're going to get marks for the 2 equivalent fractions. You're going to get a mark for telling me that you know how to subtract them, and you're going to get a mark for the answer. And of course, if it's a word problem, you get a mark for the sentence. Sometimes it has to be reduced. If that's the case, you would have to reduce it, and you get a mark for the reduced also. Okay, 6/7 and 3/4. What is the difference? When you get a question like this, the order is the order in which you subtract it. So it's going to be 6/7, take away 3/4. Okay, pause the recording and try that question. All right, first common denominator, 7 times 4, that's 28. This one, 6 times 4 is 24. The next one, 3 times 7 is 21. So 24 take away 21, all over 28. Well, 24 take away 21 is 3. So your answer is 3/28. Turn the page. 3 questions. Well, you can pause the recording and do all 3, or you can wait and do them in sections with me. First off, pause it and do the first one. 4/5 take 1/2, and then I'll do it for you, and you can double check. All right. So lowest common denominator is 5 times 2, so that's 10. So I'm going to have a denominator of 10. So 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 5 is 5. So 8 take away 5. We keep the denominator of 10. 8 take away 5 is 3/10. There you go. Pause the recording and try the next one. Okay, common denominator is going to be 27. That's 9 times 3. So we have 27 and 27. So 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 9 is 9. So 12 take away 9, all over 27. 12 take away 9 is 3. So 3/27s can be reduced. 3/27, you can divide both of these by 3, and that gives you 1/9. If you use your calculator to do it, you can use it. So it is allowed. You would go 3 on your calculator, and then you'd press your ABC button, and then you press the 27 on your calculator, the numbers, and finally press your equals, and your calculator in some format will show you 1/9, depending on the actual type of calculator you have. Okay, pause the next one and do 11/12, take away 3/4. Okay, 12 times 4 is 48. So we have getting ahead of myself here. We need a common denominator of 48. So there's our 48s. 11 times 4 is 44. 3 times 12 is 36. So 44 take away 36. We keep the denominator. And 44 take away 36 is 8. So we have 8 48ths. We can divide this. Both of them can be divided by 8. And your answer should be 1/6. So taking and using your ABC button, which is possible, you would go 8 ABC 48, and then press equals, and it will spit out 1/6. Okay, got a couple of minutes left, so what I'd like you to do now is I'm going to change these questions, get a piece of scrap paper, and rather than subtract them, this time we're going to take the whole thing and we're going to add them. So each question I'd like you to take and add 4/5 plus 1/2. I want you to take 4/9 and add 1/3. And I want you to take 11/12 and I want you to add 3/4. So use your paper and do this through cross multiplication. So pause the recording and try the first one. Okay, so now it's going to be the same type we just did a minute ago. Lowest common denominator doesn't change, it's still 10. Now we have 4 times 2, which is 8. 1 times 5, which is 5. So now it's 8 plus 5 rather than 8 take away 5. And 8 plus 5 is 13/10. Your calculator, if you check it, will spit out 1 3/10. These are the same fraction. This one is the improper form, and this one is the mixed form. They're the same thing. Try the next one. All right, so we have the same common denominator we did a minute ago, 27. 4 times 3 is 12, going that way. 1 times 9 is 9, since we're adding. 12 plus 9 over 27, that's 21 over 27, which can be reduced. You can divide both of these by 3, and you're going to end up with 7 over 9. Use your ABC button, you would go 21 ABC 27, press equals, and it would give you 7/9. Try the third one. Okay, lowest common denominator in this case is a 12, but I'm going to use cross multiplication. So I am going to use 48. Okay, 11 times 4 is 44. 3 times 12 is 36. So 44 plus 36, we keep the 48ths. 44 plus 36 is actually 80 over 48. And we can divide these both by 8s. 80 divided by 8 is 10. 48 divided by 8 is 6. We can still divide one more step. Divide by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So your answer is 5/3 or 1 2/3. Both of these are correct. This is the mixed form, the improper form, and this one here is the mixed form. If you wanted to do the reducing in one step, you could have put 80, ABC, 48, then press equals, and your calculator will spit out 1 2/3 for you, or possibly 5/3, depending on how you have set your settings. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of that lesson. If you have any questions, go back over it. Remember that you have to be able to show all of the steps. I want to see all of the mixed fractions, or all of the fractions turned into their equivalent fractions. I want to see them added. I want to see what you got. I want to make sure that you have reduced fractions, and always check to make sure that if it's a word problem that you give me a sentence and include your units. All right, that's the end of this lesson.